Stolen Realm is a cooperative, hex-based fantasy strategy RPG. Now, while I want to recommend this game, and I plan on returning to it in the future, there is a sore lack of features and polish here. Underneath its problems is a really cool game potentially, but unfortunately, I can't bring myself to recommend it at this time. Just to name a few problems, it's got some very repetitive music, there are only a handful of tracks right now, and the battle theme in particular gets quite grating quite quick. There's no engaging narrative to keep you hooked into it outside of the gameplay, despite this being a RPG. Some optimization issues are present here. My frame rate was hitting 30 FPS on a system like mine. It needs options for changing your controls, such as adding rebindable keys and adjusting your default hotbar keys. It also needs a few more mechanics to make battles a bit more engaging and involved, and in general, the game's sound design could use some more work. I felt that it needed a little bit more bass for some of the weapon attacks to make things a little bit more impactful. Now, that being said, the game is shockingly fun once I turned off the music and played my own soundtrack over it. I used the soundtrack from Heroes of Might and Magic 2, which is what you'll be hearing throughout the video. One of the game's more polished and defined aspects is the customization. It's pretty good. You can create a ton of characters, and you can take up to 6 of them into the game with you, and they all have various classes that you can choose from. But the classes aren't just set in stone like other RPGs. You can make a warrior, but give him magic abilities like healing. Now he's a paladin. Don't like your thief? Well, give him some physical defense, a sword and board, and now he's a warrior that can do some crits. Hate how other SRPGs feel restrictive? The combat system here is pretty flexible when you make mistakes, and the game has tons of spells and abilities to use. They are a bit vanilla, buff weapon with fire damage, heal for X amount, but there's a lot to tinker with, and they do have their own buffs and debuffs that can synergize with your other party members. Cosmetic Customization is pretty strong, surprisingly. When you first boot up the game, you might be disappointed to find all your guys kind of look the same, with the exception of their names and weapons, but after beating the first level, my party was looking distinct, and the create a character is simple yet really effective and fun. Between the equipment and the character creation, you can really make a character your own, which is great seeing as the game's selling point is co-op. However, the biggest problem of the game has to be the local co-op aspect. This game has the potential to stand out from its peers in the strategy RPG genre if it implements a robust co-op system throughout its time in early access. Otherwise, the game is nothing too special, although it is fun. I haven't tested online, and if it works right, then that's great, but this game is currently listed as shared/split-screen co-op on the store page. This is important because local co-op games are easy to recommend, because if the online player base count is very low, or if the servers ever go down, which is always a factor with smaller indie games, you'll still have a functional way of playing the game with more players without the drawbacks of playing online. Unfortunately, Stolen Realm's local multiplayer isn't functional. You can hook up multiple controllers and everyone can play, but the problem is that everyone controls the same cursor at the same time. And in an RPG where you're allocating stats, making tactical decisions, selling and buying equipment with precious resources, that's a huge problem. At any point someone could put their controller down and hit a button by mistake while someone else is controlling the party, and that completely screws something up. To make matters worse, using an analog stick to control the cursor takes ages, and the interface is not well designed for a controller. Works great on a mouse and keyboard, and that'll be an improvement for playing online, but for local play, it's pretty bad right now. Now, I've read several comments from the developers regarding the implementation of local co-op, and they said they'd look into putting it in. Which is weird because it's technically in, but when you add that tag, there's an expectation that it's ready to go and functional, and it's just not right now. It was incredibly confusing the first time me and a group of friends booted the game up and started playing, and we all decided it was not worth it to play it in local co-op. With that being said, I still can't recommend the game just yet. I think there's a lot of potential here, and it's worth keeping an eye on, and if it does improve, I'll update my thoughts. The developers are extremely active and responsive. When I was having issues with my press copy through a third-party site, they helped me sort it out. They seem to be very active on Reddit and their crowdfunding pages. So this game is probably in good hands, all things considered. And I'd like to reiterate that, like I said at the beginning of the video, this game does in fact have more issues aside from just co-op. When those issues get fixed, it's starting to look like a really good single-player SRPG. When it has co-op, then it's going to stand above a lot of its peers. And I feel like that's what it should really focus on is getting a good co-op system to stand above other titles in the same genre. But for now, if you're chomping at the bit for a local or online SRPG, I would maybe look into the first Divinity Original Sin. A bit of an unfair comparison, but that game is finished. And this game is just coming out in early access now. So hopefully it'll improve over time, but for now, I cannot recommend this title. Alright, anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out.